So good afternoon all. Welcome to today's Tool Talk session. I welcome you all on behalf of Tagma Management and Secretariat to this Tool Talk session on designing and building molds for aerospace requirements. So the today's topic is all about what is needed in aerospace industry, what kind of molds are needed, how we can prepare for the aerospace industry. But why are we talking about that particular topic? Well, let us firstly understand that. So it's because the opportunity is immense in the automotive or aerospace industry. The aerospace industry is growing rapidly. Even the news report highlights that India is extensively focusing on indigenous production and attracting investment from companies across the globe. Also, since the time COVID has struck, tool makers are looking for diversification. A lot of tool makers I reach out to, they are all thinking about, diversifying to other industries. And one industry that is like preferred or comes as a preferred choice is the aerospace industry. However, serving aerospace industry is not very easy task because it demands high precision, efficiency, and new kind of skill set altogether. So to discuss more on this, we have Mr. Vipul Vachhani, who is founder and CEO of Jaivel Aerospace and has been serving the aerospace industry since last, I would say, more than a decade or so. So welcome, Mr. Vipul, on behalf of Tagma Management and Tooling Fraternity. I welcome you to this Tool Talk session.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vipul. So before we start, I would like to just introduce Mr. Vipul in a little detailed manner. So he is a founder and CEO of Jaivel Aerospace and is responsible for developing and executing strategic and corporate initiatives throughout the organization and to ensure the company is most preferred choice for to solve the challenges of tomorrow's manufacturing. Operating from international headquarters of Jaivel in United Kingdom, Mr. Vipul provides strong support to UK-Indian trade relationships and speaks at many events, sharing his experience in establishing Jaivel Aerospace as trusted partner for global aerospace and advanced manufacturing organization. And prior to finding Jaivel in 1998, Mr. Vipul graduated as a mechanical engineer from Bangalore University. And during his early stage of career in India and the USA, Mr. Vipul worked for new product development organizations where he established a strong foundation in technology R&D in the aerospace sector. So that's a great introduction, sir. Shall we start today's session, Mr. Vipul?
Yes, please.
So before we start it, I have one announcement. If you have any questions to Mr. Vipul, please post that in the chat box that Mr. Vipul can address at the end of the session. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Vipul, as per your introduction also and looking at your profile, you seem to have a great passion for aerospace industry. So, to start with, please share your journey with Jaivel Aerospace and how it started, when you started, and what solutions you provide.
Right. So I started the company in 1998 in Rajkot, India,
Right.
in Gujarat. And we first 5 to 6 years, we primarily operated out of Rajkot at very early stage. It was a very small start. Two people, one computer, one machine, that kind of a start.
Okay.
It was a bit of a challenge to do an aerospace work operating out of India at the time, the quite early stage, and also the current momentum of international companies very interested in doing business in India wasn't there at the time. With those challenges, we decided to set up our operations in UK in 2004 December, around 2005 timeframe. And thereafter, we had been operating out of India as well as UK. After the initial establishment, it took us probably about 2 years to get our feet under the table properly in the UK operations. We grew from Rajkot to we established the small operations in Mumbai, great help from Paresh, and thereafter in Bangalore. And over the years, we have steadily grown, reaching up to now we work directly with companies like Boeing, Rolls-Royce, and do a lot of work on Airbus and other companies' platform. So that's the brief journey that we have. In terms of the kind of solutions that we provide, our core business has been design of manufacturing processes. So that's quite a niche service offering, quite a niche proposition, where we design the complete manufacturing process for either entire systems or subsystems, and also engineer it and roll it out on a customer shop floor. So let's say a large OEM or tier one company, they would like to manufacture fuel system or landing gear system, actuation systems, and stuff like that. That is where our role comes into the picture. On side of that, there are a lot of jigs, fixtures, and tooling that is required in any process of manufacturing complex products. So we design and make those jigs, fixtures ourselves, and it is manufactured in our facility in Ahmedabad, and also delivered sometime as a turnkey solution, sometime as a standalone. So that's a brief overview of what we do.
Nice, and I must say a very inspiring journey as well, establishing a global operation and serving such a large aerospace giants is a great achievement. So coming back to the more core topic, so we know that in recent time there has been a significant development in Indian aerospace and defense sector. So since you operate globally, can you please highlight emerging trends in global aerospace industry versus the Indian aerospace industry?
Right. I think that in terms of it is very difficult to differentiate the trend of India versus international, because aerospace industry is very international industry.
Right.
As a nation, we are a new entrant or new contender to provide product and services in that arena. So if we look at the scenario before the pandemic, it was told that this decade is a manufacturing decade. So there were a lot of new platforms that were designed, built, and got certified, came into service between 2005 and 2015-18 sort of time frame. And industry was heavily focused on ramping up the production. That was a pre-pandemic scenario. And what was expected at the time was that over next 10 to 15 years, significant volume of aircrafts will get manufactured. Most OEMs and engine manufacturers has an order book of about 15 to 17, 20 years. So which was quite a robust scenario. Pandemic did disrupt the whole thing. Having said that, those demand has definitely not gone away.
Okay.
It was I would not call it small, but it was a significant wrinkle in the show. But after that, now if we look at the trend of last 6, 7, 8 months and the projections that various aircraft companies are showing, the things are getting back into exactly the same trend.
Okay.
Having said that, there has been a significant disruption at supply chain level also in last 2.5 years. So a lot of small players have not sustained through the process. And what that means is that it will take still probably 2 years to get back into a proper rhythm as a supply chain or as an aircraft building process. So that is the current scenario. In midst of all this, from an Indian aerospace industry perspective, I think all of this does present a significant challenge. Significant opportunity.
Okay.
Because when things are going normal, things are in steady state, it is very difficult for new players to come into the play. When things are changing, things are dynamic, things got disrupted, that presents an opportunity for new players to come and say that, hey guys, we can do this, or we can do this better, or we can do this cheaper, or both.
Okay. Okay. So pandemic didn't have much effect on the growth of the aerospace industry overall.
Sorry, could you repeat again?
I'm just saying pandemic didn't have much of effect on the overall growth of the industry, aerospace industry.
No, it did not. It did not.
Okay.
And in fact, just to add few comments, if you have seen the the situation of the airline traffic over last 2, 3, 4, 5 months, it is significantly higher than airline or an airport can handle.
Right,
That's
right.
the scenario, particularly in Europe and also in US.
Okay, okay. That's great to know. So, coming back to again the Indian scenario, we see that many Indian conglomerates and large companies are, forging partnerships with global giants. For example, Tata acquired IP rights to manufacture military aircraft in India. Lockheed Martin signs agreement with HAL and exploring potential industrial collaboration. Also, HAL is planning to set up base in southeastern countries like Malaysia, Vietnam, and many other places. And Bharat Dynamics also signed an agreement with TELS. So, with such development, how will these developments, impact the Indian aerospace industry, specifically the component suppliers and tooling suppliers?
Right. So all in all, it's a fantastic news.
Yeah,
And just let me give you some perspective of it. It's quite important. What I've seen, and the people often compare the opportunities in aerospace with IT. What happened in IT industry in 2000, between 95 to 2000, and as a nation, we have a prominent place in the world in IT sector.
right, right,
Aerospace is very different to that. When those IT opportunities came into play, even entire world was trying to figure out what to do with this technology.
right, right.
Whereas aerospace is extremely mature technology, extremely mature production line, supply chain, and all of it over last 100 years.
Okay,
So entering into that is a little bit more challenging. It needs a slightly different mindset.
okay,
I would compare, I think a lot of companies here would be working with automotive companies. And that journey of last 15 years, I still remember launch of Maruti 800 in around 85, 87. And pretty sure the supply chain at the time, and many of the colleagues here might be part of that journey, have developed those capabilities, understanding, sometime handholding from OEMs, and sometime investing their time, effort, money uh, to provide a world-class solution to these international players. So today, I don't think any of the international companies operating out of India is expecting any different quality from Indian suppliers.
okay,
They are, and from an automotive perspective. So,
right,
so keeping that, the aerospace will have a very similar journey. Having said that, slightly more tougher because this is a document-heavy industry, standards-heavy industry, compliance-heavy industry. So there is a huge emphasis on that side of things. So a product produced for an automotive industry, from a quality perspective, probably many companies here might already be making that level of quality or maybe little delta in it. But from a documentation or traceability point of view, those are the gaps to really focus on.
okay, okay. So you mean to say opportunity is immense, we just need to get our things corrected to serve the industry.
That's correct.
Right, right. So let's get to the core mold manufacturing topic. So as the title of this tool talk session also suggests, what is it what it is like to design and build mold for the aerospace industry? How it is different from any other industries like automotive or medical?
Uh, Quite significantly comparable.
Okay,
To automotive or definitely to medical. Having said that, the automotive, so when I look at it from aerospace perspective, and quite a lot of my friends work in the automotive sector,
right.
uh, there is a significant amount of performance requirement in terms of a volume, a reliability, warranty of the mold, performance of it. Uh, Aerospace is slightly more kinder on those topics because volumes are not at automotive level.
Okay,
So we're not talking about a car production volumes. Just to give you an idea of volume, Airbus manufactures close to 55 to 60 aircrafts a month of various different models. So all the parts are required in that sort of number of chipsets. And similarly, other aircraft companies operate in that sort of numbers. So, but where things change, things differ, is the traceability of it, uh, the documentation of it, the quality of it, and ensuring that every part is meeting to the specifications. In quite a lot of cases, 100% inspection of all the parts is not surprising.
Okay.
It does happen that. In terms of for Indian suppliers on how to approach, so the tooling, yeah, if you look at the supply chain tree, OEM who or a prime as it's called, who manufactures the aircraft, they don't buy molds. So mold comes as a tier 3 or tier 4.
Okay.
Then you go to the seating system. Take an example. So there are companies which provide the seating system. Now, these are the companies which buy the plastic components or sometimes make the plastic components in-house. And they would be looking for the mold.
Right.
And the ideal place would be tier 3. And let me just defy or clarify one notion that like everybody else, I also was quite fascinated to work directly with the biggest company possible. Working in case of automotive, whoever is making car, or in case of aircraft, whoever is making aeroplanes. There is no need to rush into that. It's quite an expensive proposition to work directly with the OEMs or work directly with the primes. It is, I would definitely recommend that 2 to 5 years as a tier 2 or tier 3, and then graduate to the next level.
Okay. Okay. So there should be a step-by-step approach to serve the OEMs in this industry.
That's correct.
Okay, and so of course the volume may not be as high as the automotive industry, but the number of molds needed in an aircraft might be really high. So in the aerospace industry, what kind of tools and molds are needed? So can you please share some details in this?
So the tools and molds are not very different to, so mainly first let's try and understand where is the plastics in an aircraft. Mainly in a commercial aircraft, plastics is used in interiors. That's
Right.
that's 90% of the bulk. Other plastics are used in relatively simpler applications, the cables, the cable racking systems, and stuff like that. So
Right.
what we see in physical interiors, the quite significant amount of plastic is used. The way trend is and where things are going, my understanding is that over next 10 years, we will not see any metal in a seating systems. Still, there are metal brackets and metal elements as material evolve, and we get the high strength plastics, which can be qualified for aerospace. Overall, the types of mold in some cases are not as complex as automotive molds. Some of the lighting system molds that I have seen in automotive is quite a complex piece of tool. Where things would change would be mainly on the aesthetics or consistency of it.
Okay. Right. So you have spoken about the kind of standards one needs to serve the aerospace industry and the kind of technologies. So, do you think the Indian dam mold manufacturers are fully equipped to serve the demands of aerospace industry?
I don't know the answer to that question. The reason that is specific to it, it varies from a company to company.
Okay.
But I can give you my best judgment, which is that if Indian tooling industry is so successful in automotive, as a overall industry, we are not far off.
Okay.
In terms of meeting those requirements. Whatever is the step up, if I were to quantify that, the quality or the capability step up would be relatively small. The management system, documentation, traceability, control of the processes, that might be a slightly more bigger step.
Okay. Okay. Can you explain a little bit more on that? What kind of things will be needed?
Right. So the first thing is that every component that goes in an aircraft uh, should be traceable for about at least minimum of 11 years.
Okay.
So if you're working directly, your customer could come back after 7 years and say that, hey guys, you made this part in 2011 on 7th of December. That's the stamp on the part. Can you send me the inspection reports?
Okay.
Can you send me the details, material certificate of the raw material that you guys used? So that's one aspect of it. So if there is a buy of a part, sorry, I'm mixing a little bit between tool and part, but that percolates into the tool also. So
Okay.
it will go all the way to the tools, raw material, and all of that. Uh,
Okay.
the second thing is, let's say something has gone wrong, something is not right. Now, a technical fix for solving that problem might be half a day. That, yeah, send me the mold, let me open it, let me polish that surface or remove this insert and remake it and all of it. A documentation to prove, first of all, to demonstrate that why it happened, and then
Right.
prove that it is never going to happen in future is the time consuming process. That's where the systems are required.
Okay. Okay. Right. So, getting back to more practical question, let's assume that I own a tool room. I have a mold factory, and I'm serving the automotive industry for a really long time, but have no experience or haven't served any aerospace company yet. So, in your opinion, what kind of infrastructure I would need? What kind of skill set I would need? Basically, how can I equip myself to serve the aerospace industry?
Right. So the first step of that would be, I assume most of these companies or company like this will have ISO 9001 certificate
Right.
and the relevant automotive certification, whatever is required. Implement that standard in a best possible way. So you'll have to move away from audit focused compliance versus daily compliance.
Okay.
So if you have to prepare 15 days or 20 days before audit, there is definitely something wrong with this implementation. What is expected, particularly in aerospace industry, and I'm not exaggerating it. There is no ideal world. There are things that not quite up to mark in aerospace industries also. Having said that, for a good organization to thrive, those ISO 9001 standards needs to be upgraded to AS 9100. So AS 9100 is the standard which is built on ISO 9001 and few additional requirements, which in terms of the standard in the text, it's few. In terms of the on ground reality, it makes quite a big difference.
Okay.
So that would be my first step. The second step would be the people. Essentially, however control or whatever we establish in any organization, you need to have a people with the right level of honesty and integrity who's going to say that this is not right. Because otherwise, in absence of that, no system will ever capture it. Or if system will capture it, it will be extremely expensive. So that is something which you will. It's more of a building of a right culture in a company, and especially the person who has done the mistake should have a courage or a surety that he or she is able to say that this is not right. Because the mistakes that flow through could be significantly expensive. Not just in terms of the delay or delay of payment and all of it, but in literal financial terms.
Okay.
Those penalties could be quite severe.
Okay.
So that would be the second step of preparing that. And the control of internal processes. So it goes hand in hand. And the third is in terms of approaching customers, building a real USP. What's different? So when you approach, let's say, a company that's manufacturing seating, when we turn up over there, we knock the door and say, "Hey guys, we can make you mold." What is the real differentiator? And it would be worthwhile to work on that before knocking the door.
Okay.
In terms of an opportunity, there is definitely an appetite for aerospace companies to look at alternatives to their current supply chain in plastics.
Okay.
So that's quite a significant opportunity.
Okay. And infrastructure and technology wise, what would you suggest? Like, what kind of infrastructure or technologies will be needed since the demand for the accuracy is little higher? Or
I don't see any major changes in technology. So most of the companies are using CNC machines, 5-axis CNC machines, CMMs, and many other the good quality wire EDM machines, good quality EDM machines, and all of that. What will make a difference is that regularly calibrated machines so that it is reliable throughout.
okay.
And rest all what I said in terms of the process. So the delta, I'll repeat again, the delta between, in terms of on ground delta between aerospace mold and automotive mold is not large. It is never going to be a situation where it would say that you'll need machine X for automotive mold and you'll need machine Y for aerospace mold. It exactly the same kind of machines are used.
Okay. Okay. So, while talking, I just remembered one thing that happened 3, 4 years back. So, I was interviewing Mr. Vaidya, who is, who was VP and business head of Godrej Aerospace. And during one question, he said that the opportunity in aerospace industry is so high that if done correctly, it will give you the same amount of business as the automotive industry in like a decade time. How much do you agree to that? Do you think that kind of opportunities we have?
I would completely agree to that.
Okay.
Having said that, there is quite a significant entry barrier.
Okay.
So the effort to get into that supply chain, the lot of people give up halfway through,
Okay.
and that is where the real challenge is. Uh, and where is this potential coming from? This potential, the aerospace is the only industry where the ultimate aircraft manufacturers has a 10, 15, 20 years visibility of what they need. Of same thing. No other industry has that luxury. This is just the nature of the industry.
Right.
So once you are an established supplier in for a particular product range, unless a supplier becomes very difficult to deal with, usually they don't change the suppliers. So there is a level of assurity, there is a level of reliability with which you can make the investments, future plans, and all of that.
Okay.
So that's quite unique to aerospace, and that's the one of the biggest attractions from a business perspective.
Nice. Right. So my next question is, there is a book called I Love STEM, where STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So in the book, it's mentioned that Elon Musk, who is like arguably the biggest businessman and industrialist in our generation, believes in the in-house work. So basically, he doesn't like to rely much on the supplier so that he can control the supply chain. And by doing that, he believes that he can make better, products and control the cost as well. In fact, for example, SpaceX manufactures at least 80 to 90% of the engine component, electric component, and other, equipments in-house. And what do you think about it? Since many companies in auto and aero domain have their own captive tool rooms as well. So is it viable for OEMs and component providers to source tool from in-house captive tool rooms, or they should always continue to work with the commercial tool rooms as well?
Right. So there are the two school of thoughts at top level. The vertical integration versus the distributed supply chain. And the concept of vertical integration evolved in automotive, early days automotive world,
Right.
where organizations like Ford even owned the iron ore mines all the way to the car. So that was a great example of vertical integration. Aerospace over last 20, 30 years have worked, most large companies that I know of has worked towards a completely different direction where they want to deal with as many less suppliers as possible, and they do not want to manufacture, or their preference is to manufacture the detailed parts and sub-assemblies in a supply chain. So aircraft manufacturer essentially focuses on designing a product, building a product, certifying a product, and operating a product. Uh, Detail part manufacturing, all of them have some amount of capabilities. And those capabilities are essentially used for research and development, sometimes to support the exigency or emergency of the situation. But bulk of the work, and more than 95% of the detail part work, happens in outside their organization.
Okay.
So I don't see personally that as a significant challenge. Mr. Musk deals with the situation very differently, which sometimes we
Yes.
don't understand.
Yeah, yeah, very unconventional. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right. So before we move on to next question, I have a request for the audience. If you have any question, please post those in chat box. I have just a couple of questions, then Mr. Vipul can address those questions as well. So just a couple of questions, Mr. Vipul. So you have experience working with different industries from aerospace to automotive, even in the medical industry as well. So how do the approach and demand changes in aerospace industry compared to automotive industry?
Right. So we did one clarification here. Our experience in automotive is relatively smaller, and it is limited to high performance cars. So we don't have an experience of building large volume for a commercial vehicles.
Right, right.
Uh, uh, but in terms of the difference, I think I did highlight some of those points in earlier comments. The main difference would be the quality traceability, or little jump in a quality, not a significant one, but standard systems and processes. That would be the one of the major differences.
Right, right.
So just to clarify a little further, knowing I know what I know of aerospace now, and if I was an automotive tool maker, uh, I would have a significantly high confidence that I can meet aerospace requirements. It's not that bigger a jump.
Okay. Okay. So just last question, my friend, from my side. What exactly is the expectations of, aircraft manufacturers from the tooling suppliers? And second part of my question is your suggestions to the Indian tool makers, especially those who want to enter the aircraft industry, aerospace manufacturing industry.
Right. So in terms of an expectations, uh, the aerospace industry do not differentiate the expectation between mold supplier versus jigs and tooling supplier versus component supplier. There are some functional aspects which will vary from a product to product, but otherwise, the first thing that will be discussed is about your systems and processes. I have seen the aerospace companies audit when they come here during the introductory session. They don't even want to take a tour of factory floor
Okay.
in first visit. There has been some of the visitors, they've traveled all the way from North America to Rajkot, and they've spent 3 days in a conference room and went back. That if your documentation, your systems are not right, however good machine is not of an interest. The second thing is very high on a top priority. They will assess is how you are managing your data.
Okay.
We all are used to signing non-disclosure agreements, and that file is there somewhere in the rack in every CEO or MD's office. What does it make difference if there are 5 more documents in that file? What changes in the shop floor? That is what they would like to understand.
Right.
So how well is the data security? How well is the confidentiality rolled out? How you educate your people for that? How you educate your supplier for that? And ultimately, how you control your suppliers for that? Or every stakeholder, not just suppliers.
Right.
So that would be information. Data security is going to be one of the key topic. System processes, process control is going to be one of the key topic. They're perfectly fine to look at a failure and understand that a company has managed this failure extremely well. That would give you good marks. So they're not really after consistent success in everything. They are really after consistent systems and reliable processes in everything. So those are really the areas where to prepare for.
Okay. Right. So thank you so much. That's it from my side, Mr. Vipul. And thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. Sure, the aerospace and defense industry is growing and it could be one of the avenue for tool makers to focus on. And also thanks for setting expectations from the aerospace industry and making very apt suggestions to Indian tool makers as well. So with this, let's take questions from the audience. We have one question from Mr. Bhavesh Misra. He asks, how can small scale tool manufacturer grow in aerospace industry and meet their standards? I think this was part of my question as well, but maybe you can just touch upon again.
Yeah. So I think one of the beauty of tool making and what we do, jigs, fixtures, and tooling manufacturing, we don't make the molds, is that the size really doesn't matter. If you are a component supplier, size matters. Any customer who walks in, they're going to look at, this is my volume requirement. Have you got a capacity? Have you got a spare capacity? And so and so, so and so. In jigs, fixtures, and tooling or the molds, the size is not that significant. When we received our first aircraft company approval, we were operating out of 6,000 square feet facility. Paresh has seen it. So it's personal experience, size doesn't matter. What matters is your USP. What is different? Why your molds are better than competition? Why your service is better than competition? Why your controls are better than competition? That is going to be more critical, not really the size. And one more thing I want to add on size is over last 10 years, or particularly last 5 years, thanks to this startup ecosystem around the world, I have seen 10 people company working directly with aircraft manufacturers because they are doing something unique, operating out of one single office. So it is the uniqueness which is more significant than the size
Right. Okay.
as an entry point for sure.
Sure. Can we take another question? This is from Mr. Vinayak. He asks, any specific steels are used to make the molds in aerospace?
No, I can't think of anything different to what currently happening in other mold industry. Just doing it right and doing it at world-class standards.
Okay. Okay. That's good. One question from Mr. Sanjeev. He asks, aerospace parts are of low volume and how does the product costing supports Indian manufacturers where all the pricing is based on the volume?
Aerospace parts are definitely of low volume, and so there are mold shops in terms of volume around in a developed part of the world where they cater to extremely large number of parts.
Right.
So their mold changeover is as frequent as 3 days, 5 days, 10 days. And their ability to manage the stock inventory for the large number of line items makes them different.
Okay. Another question from Mr. Deepak. Requirement of aerospace industries from steel supplier. As a steel supplier, do we need to do some sort of standardization? Also, what kind of tooling is still required in aerospace industry?
Right. So that is a huge topic. The reason it is a huge topic is that most aircraft companies specify the types of steel that's to be used or types of material that's to be used. Even the responsibility of designing a mold would rest with the mold maker or a plastic component supplier. Still, there is a emphasize that these are the material specs to be used, and most of these material specs are either US origin or Europe origin. Getting this on our side also, getting some of these materials is a huge challenge. Not available in Indian market, and it is to be important. So nothing specific to be done. Unfortunately, I can't give you the grades or list of grades at the moment. Happy to help offline. But any steel supplying companies, there is a lot of opportunities as most manufacturing companies who has got to a stage of getting approvals of these aerospace companies, there one of the challenge is having availability of material in India.
Okay. Right. A question from Lokesha. Hello, sir. Is it possible for a small design engineering company to enter and serve the aerospace domain?
I cannot say no to that because that's what we have been. That's been our journey. Unfortunately, the problem is all the gray hairs that it generates. It's a tremendous hard work. If I give an honest answer, do I recommend somebody to go through that? I would say no. It's not
Right.
impossible. It's definitely not impossible. It's doable.
Okay, a question from Mr. Abhijit. Requirement of aerospace industry from sheet metal press tool industry.
One of the biggest opportunity for India is sheet metal. And the reason there is very less amount of sheet metal work gets done in India is lack of high quality sheet metal tooling suppliers.
Okay.
So there is a constant in any sheet metal job. There is a crystal ball called spring back, and nobody wants to hold that ball. Neither component manufacturer, not the customer, and not the tool maker. So any tool maker says that, guys, I'm going to take care of the spring back, and I'll give you the part what dimensions you want. I'm pretty sure they are going to be very, very busy.
Right. Last question I can see here from Mr. Pratik Arora of Hitachi Metals. He asked, is there any other certification required other than AS9120 in case of mold manufacturers?
No. So the two or three topics here. Even AS9100 technically is not required for tooling or jigs and fixture manufacturers.
Okay.
Having said that, because it is heavily focused on design or a flying part manufacturers, that's what AS is built around. In order to generate a confidence, when you knock the door and you say that you have an AS certificate since last X number of years, that gives an instant confidence for any aerospace buyer to take that conversation forward. And that's why AS is essential. The next step that comes in when they come to audit a supplier, to getting the approval from any of the OEMs is a quite a process. And for them, the starting point is, do you have an AS? Okay, great. Now we can start. And everybody, all of these aircraft companies bring their own standards with it. And all those standards are written on AS based. So it assumes that there is an AS here, and then they build on top of it. So that's why AS is essential. You can't run away from it, but AS is the only standard which will be required at the beginning. The second standard which will be required is NADCAP if you're doing special processes, or recently there has been quite a movement where NADCAP is required for inspection also.
Okay.
But that is work in progress. It is not put as an essential requirement yet. But that would come. And at some point in time, if you are handling a critical aircraft data, then information security standards, which varies from a company to company, and they would say that we will need so and so standard.
Okay. Okay. Another question I can see now is from Mr. Thiru. Is there any special surface texture pattern in aerospace? Is it laser texture mandatory?
So based on the application, that would have been written on the spec. So any whether it's designed, you're getting a design, then it will be mentioned in the design. If you're not getting a design, and it's a responsibility of component manufacturer or tool maker to design it, then would be a very detailed spec that will come through, and that would describe all of this requirement to nth degree. The laser etching in particularly, it's not essential that there is nothing, you can't do anything other than that. It's based on whoever has designed those or who has written the spec and what they consider right or appropriate for that application.
Okay. One last question I can see again from Mr. Pratik Arora, which should be last question for us, is which companies are the main user of aerospace molds?
Any companies which is making interior products.
Okay.
So that would be the direct point of call. There are also quite a few large molding companies around Europe, in US, they would be a fantastic first point of contact.
Right. Thank you so much. Thanks for taking these questions directly and giving your insights. Mr. Paresh, would you like to say anything to Mr. Vipul?
Yeah, I would like to thank Vipul Bhai to come and share his more than near to 3 decades of experience in aerospace industry. So he's a true passionate about aerospace manufacturing. So he had share his very frank and open opinions. So thank you, sir, for coming and sharing your thoughts about opportunities in aerospace industry for the toolmaker.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for the invitation. Pleasure to have the opportunity to share.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. It was nice learning about all the requirements and your, thanks for sharing your wisdom. And we should engage more in future as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in today's session. It was nice having you all here. Stay tuned for the next tool talk session. Also, I would say keep checking Atagma website. They have announced the International Tooling Summit, which is scheduled to take place in Gurugram on September 21st and 22nd. So mark your calendar. Join us here there at ITS. It is going to be the first physical conference after pandemic, and I'm sure you are going to meet a lot of leaders from various industries. So see you all there. Thank you so much, and thanks. Thank you, Mr. Vipul.
Thank you,
Thank
Vipul.
you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Paresh. Talk
Thank
to
you.
you. Thank you, everyone.